that concludes the first part of our panel and conference today, because the second part would be question and answer. I will ask some questions from our panelists, and then there will be time for you guys to ask some questions. But before that, I just want to thank every single one of our panelists for coming here, sharing their thoughts, sharing their stories, sharing their feelings with us, sharing their aims and objectives of what they want to do and what they're asking everyone, the whole world, to do in support of political prisoners in Iran, and also what can we do together internationally to get rid of the Islamic regime, and once again, the most dangerous, violent regime on earth. So it's quite important that we do keep that public support, especially for political prisoners, because there are so many of them. Shiva showed you one picture, and there's so many of them are actually facing an immediate danger. And it's quite ironic that in this world, the Islamic regime's representatives becomes a human rights caucus of human rights, as a representative of the human rights in caucus. So what kind of a UN we are facing? That the regime that is clearly on everyone's TV, we have seen. Guterres in UN has seen it, everyone else has seen it, but yet refrain from taking strong action. Where so many children have been killed, but UNICEF stops and refrains from taking strong actions. Why? Because I think they need to feel pressure. They need to be under constant pressure from all of us to take strong actions. And these kinds of actions is quite important. This kind of broadcasted media is quite important. This voice needs to go everywhere. So once again, I just want to thank all our panelists, and I would like to start a question time by asking one or two questions starting from you, Thijs. I'll put two into one question. One is about sanctions. European countries and governments and European parliaments have continuously putting individuals from this Islamic regime on the sanction list. This is good, but on its own, is it effective? Because Iranians' name from the IRGC, who are on the list of sanctions, they said, we never travel. We never send money there. We never send our business there. They can sanction us as much as they want. So is it effective, or it needs to be backed by a much stronger action? Like, for example, IRGC put on the terrorist list. Or why the embassies are open? Some countries would say that because we need to keep a dialogue. Dialogue with whom? Are we having a dialogue with terrorists? We never do. European Parliament never do. So my question is putting individuals from the Islamic regime on the list of sanctions effective? And what can we do that despite European Parliament members have voted to put IRGC on the terrorist list, what can we do to make sure that that happens?
Oh, there was another microphone.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the question. Yeah, well, I can answer it very simple. It's not enough if it's not achieving what we are wanting to achieve with this. So in that respect, it's never enough. But what is important is that we need to convince more people that this is not just about the Iranian regime. I also said to some people in the European Parliament, in the European Union, if you do not do it for Iran, which for me is enough, for me it's enough to do it for Iran, but then do it for Ukraine, because the Iranian regime is also involved in Ukraine. There's I call that sort of super autocrats. There's a group of countries working together, and they have a plan. They have a plan, and we also need to have a plan. And I fully agree with you. I mean, I think we are all in agreement tonight about that. Yes, in January, the European Parliament made a clear call, and several national EU parliaments made a clear call, put them on the terrorist list. Of course I hoped that immediately everyone would listen. But I also am realistic, and I think that it was indeed going to be a struggle. I didn't expect it was this difficult. But we need to insist. And I said also in my contribution that we will continue to pressure the new incoming presidency of Spain to put it on the agenda. The Dutch government is trying to keep it on every single meeting of the foreign affairs ministers. Is it going to do the trick? No, but we need to continue to work on it. We also already debunked the argument that it is legally complicated. No, it is not legally complicated. Everyone who says that to you, you can say, no, it's not. It's not. There are, if you want it, it can be done. If we want it, it can be done. But it requires some more governments, and we are trying to push for that, to go for that. Then on the individual sanctions, also there, it's never enough. But for example, the outcry, the debate that has arisen, for example, with still family members doing their shopping in Europe, being able to travel, that has to stop. And I also say sometimes, because people say, yeah, but it's difficult because if you freeze someone's assets and it's complicated because they also have their houses, etc. I say, well, I'd rather confiscate some houses or some assets, and I then have to admit later that I was wrong, because I can repair that. I can say, okay, I give it back. But all these people that have been killed, they will never come back. So I'd rather think that we should be a little bit more blunt, a little bit more gutsy, if you want, to say, look, we take a little bit of a risk, but it's unacceptable that relatives of the regime can still travel freely, so we have to continue. It's a difficult process because all these sanctions have to be also administered in the right way, but we are continuously pushing the member states and the Commission to do more, because if it's not delivering the right change, then we haven't done enough.
Thank you. Yes, that's quite important, and that's why we have to go for the policy, because EU policy advisors, it says that, oh, we can't put IRGC on the terrorist list because we don't like them. Is it really the EU foreign policy believes that we can't put it because we don't like it, or has to go through court? Really? So how can we make it into policy or changing people who have this kind of beliefs?
Well, there are some judicial requirements, and maybe also Ruben wants to comment on it, but there are some judicial requirements, but the trick is if you have other reasons for not wanting it, then say it. But if you want it, I want it, many national parliaments want it, the European Parliament wants it. If you want it, it can be done. It can be done. And that's what also frustrated me a lot. When we made that call as European Parliament, the next meeting of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, the outcome was not, no, we understand what you mean. We are also on the side of the Iranian people. They could have said many things. But what did they say? They said, oh, it's legally complicated. That frustrated me a lot. That's actually the reason why I'm still fighting. Because I'm not accepting that. I'm not going to accept that people say it's legally complicated. Then say that you don't want it. Yeah. That would be an honest answer. Yeah. But don't say it's legally complicated because I'm not a judicial expert and sanction expert, but I had my assistant look into that, and it's actually not so complicated. It's actually not so complicated. There are some judicial requirements, but it can be done. Maybe one more thing, I'm working on a file in the European Parliament that is new legislation to fight violation of union restrictive measures, because that has been mentioned also. you have the sanctions, but then you have the circumvention of the sanctions, and they are actually, the circumvention itself is not punishable. We are now trying to get that legislation in place together with the Commission and the Member States, and we are working on it and trying to finish it before the summer. It's a directive to make sure that actually when you circumvent sanctions, or when you are helping someone to evade sanctions, that you actually get a fine or even imprisonment if you have done it in a big way. So I think that is also important. Is it enough? No. We are always running behind, but we need to accelerate and work harder to get our legislation up to date with the people who we are fighting, because they hire the best lawyers. They hire the best lawyers to get out of the sanctions. They hire the best lawyers to get their assets free again. So we also need to get the best people to work on that legislation. Now I stop.
Thank you.